The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace, casting long shadows across the polished floors where Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, stood examining her reflection. Her hands moved methodically over the soft fabric of her modest midi dress, chosen specifically to avoid overshadowing the bride. Every detail had been calculated, from the muted color palette to the understated accessories. Today was not about royal protocol or public appearances. It was about family, about being present for Pippa on the most important day of her life. Catherine's mind drifted to the countless conversations she and Pippa had shared over the years, from their childhood days when they were simply Kate and Pip, two sisters navigating the ordinary challenges of growing up in Berkshire. Those memories felt both distant and immediate as she prepared for a day that would be anything but ordinary. The weight of public scrutiny never truly lifted from her shoulders, but today she was determined to be nothing more than a supportive sister. In another wing of the palace, Prince William was adjusting his tie with practiced precision, his movements carrying the automatic efficiency of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for public events. Yet beneath the surface composure, he felt the familiar tension that accompanied any gathering where his family would be under intense media attention. The relationship between the Wales family and the Middletons had evolved from cautious acceptance to genuine warmth over the years, but William understood that today would test their ability to navigate both personal emotions and public expectations. William's thoughts turned to Harry, who would be arriving soon from his own residence. The dynamic between the three of them had shifted considerably over the past few years. Where once there had been an easy camaraderie, now there were careful conversations and measured interactions. The pressures of royal life, the constant media attention, and their individual paths toward adulthood had created subtle but noticeable changes in their relationships. The wedding of Pippa Middleton to James Matthews represented more than just a celebration of love. It was a convergence of two worlds that had learned to coexist with varying degrees of success. For Catherine, it meant navigating the delicate balance between being a supportive sister and maintaining the dignified presence expected of a future queen. For William, it represented another opportunity to demonstrate his commitment to family while managing the complexities of royal protocol. For Harry, it would be a chance to step back from the intense scrutiny surrounding his own personal life and simply be present for people he had come to care about deeply. The preparations at the Middleton family home in Bucklebury were a study in controlled chaos. Carol Middleton moved through the house with the efficiency of a woman who had already navigated one daughter's royal wedding and understood both the excitement and pressure that such events brought. She had learned to balance the natural maternal instinct to protect and nurture with the reality that her family now lived under a level of public scrutiny that required careful consideration of every detail. Pippa herself was a vision of calm determination as she underwent the final preparations. Unlike her sister's wedding 6 years earlier, today's celebration would be more intimate, more personal. Yet she was acutely aware that the presence of the royal family members would inevitably draw significant attention. She had made peace with this reality months ago, choosing instead to focus on the joy of marrying James and celebrating with the people who mattered most to her. The relationship between Pippa and Catherine had always been characterized by mutual support and genuine affection. While the media often portrayed their dynamic through the lens of competition or comparison, the reality was far more nuanced and authentic. Pippa had watched her sister navigate the challenges of royal life with grace and determination, while Catherine had always admired Pippa's independence and strength. Today would be an opportunity for both women to simply be sisters, supporting each other through another significant milestone. The security arrangements for the day were extensive but discreet, reflecting the delicate balance between ensuring safety and maintaining the intimate nature of the celebration. Teams of protection officers had been coordinating for weeks to create a framework that would allow the family to move freely while minimizing the intrusion on other guests. The challenge was significant. How to protect some of the most recognizable faces in the world while preserving the authenticity of a family celebration. As the morning progressed, the subtle choreography of a high-profile family event began to unfold. Cars were positioned, routes were confirmed, and timing was coordinated to the minute. Yet beneath all the logistical complexity, there was a palpable sense of anticipation for what promised to be a day of genuine celebration and family connection. Catherine's final preparations included a quiet conversation with her children's nanny about the day's schedule. Prince George and Princess Charlotte would be attending as page boy and bridesmaid, adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate day. The decision to include the children reflected the Middleton family's desire to create lasting memories, while acknowledging the reality that these moments of extended family togetherness were precious and rare. The relationship between the Cambridge children and their Middleton grandparents and had become one of the most genuine and unguarded aspects of their young lives. With the Middletons, George and Charlotte could experience something approaching a normal family dynamic, free from the formal protocols that governed so much of their royal existence. Today would be another opportunity for them to witness love, celebration, and family bonds in their most authentic form. William's morning routine included a brief conversation with his private secretary about the day's logistics and potential media management. While this was officially a private family event, the reality was that any public appearance by members of the royal family required careful coordination and planning. The goal was to allow maximum enjoyment of the celebration while minimizing any potential complications or controversies. The drive from Kensington Palace to St. Mark's Church in Englefield would take the royal family members through the English countryside that held so many memories from Catherine's childhood. For her, this journey represented a return to her roots, to the community where she had grown up and formed the values that would later serve her so well in royal life. The familiar landscape outside the car windows provided a sense of grounding and perspective that was often difficult to find in the formal confines of royal residences. Harry's arrival at the meeting point was characteristically punctual, though those close to him could detect the slight tension that had become his constant companion in recent months. The pressure of being the spare heir, combined with intense media scrutiny of his personal relationships, had created a burden that he carried with typical stoicism, but obvious effort. Today offered a welcome respite from those pressures, an opportunity to focus on family and celebration rather than duty and obligation. The dynamic between the three family members as they prepared to attend the wedding together reflected the complex evolution of their relationships. There was genuine affection and mutual respect, but also an awareness of the different paths their lives were taking. William's role as future king created certain expectations and limitations, while Harry's position allowed for more flexibility, but also more uncertainty about his long-term purpose and direction. The conversation during their journey to the church was carefully neutral, focusing on the day ahead and their shared anticipation for Pippa's happiness. Yet beneath the surface politeness, each of them was navigating their own internal landscape of memories, expectations, and hopes for what the day might bring. The wedding represented not just a celebration of Pippa and James's love, but an opportunity for the extended family to come together in a spirit of unity and mutual support. As they approached the church, the presence of media and curious onlookers served as a reminder that even the most personal family moments would be subject to public scrutiny and interpretation. The challenge for all three was to remain present and engage with the authentic emotions of the day while maintaining the composed public presence that their positions required. The moment of stepping out of their vehicles and walking toward the church entrance would mark the beginning of a day that would test their ability to balance personal feelings with public expectations. For Catherine, it meant supporting her sister while representing the dignity of her royal role. For William, it required demonstrating his commitment to family while maintaining appropriate protocol. For Harry, it offered a chance to simply be present and supportive without the weight of formal responsibility. The sight of other family members and close friends gathering for the ceremony created an atmosphere of warm anticipation that helped to ease some of the underlying tension. These were people who had known them before titles and protocols became dominant factors in their lives, people who could interact with them as individuals rather than as public figures. The children's excited energy as they prepared for their roles in the ceremony provided a welcome distraction from any adult anxieties about the day. Prince George's careful attention to his page boy duties and Princess Charlotte's delight in her bridesmaid dress reminded everyone present that at its heart, this was a celebration of love and family, witnessed and blessed by those who cared most deeply about the couple's happiness. As the final moments before the ceremony approached, Catherine took a moment to center herself, remembering that today she was first and foremost Pippa's sister, someone whose presence and support could contribute to making this day as perfect as possible. The weight of royal responsibility would always be present, but today would serve the deeper purpose of celebrating family bonds and the enduring power of love to bring people together despite the challenges and complexities that life inevitably brings. The sound of the church bells beginning to ring signaled that the ceremony was about to begin, and with it, a day that would create new memories while honoring the deep family connections that had sustained them all through years of change, growth, and the unique pressures of life in the public eye. The interior of St. Mark's Church in Englefield held an intimate warmth that seemed to embrace each guest as they entered. The ancient stone walls, weathered by centuries of celebrations and sorrows, provided a sense of continuity and permanence that felt particularly meaningful on this day of new beginnings. Catherine moved gracefully down the aisle, acutely aware of the gentle rustle of fabric and the soft whispers of recognition that followed her progress, yet determined to focus entirely on her role as Pippa's sister rather than as a duchess. The seating arrangement had been carefully planned to balance family intimacy with the practical realities of accommodating guests of varying prominence and relationship to the couple. Catherine, William, and Harry found themselves positioned where they could participate fully in the ceremony while maintaining appropriate distance from the most prominent wedding party positions. This thoughtful placement reflected the Middleton family's understanding of how to honor their royal relatives while ensuring that Pippa remained the undisputed center of attention. As guests continued to arrive and settle into their seats, Catherine's eyes swept across the assembled group, recognizing faces from different chapters of her and Pippa's lives. There were childhood friends from Marlborough College, university companions from Edinburgh, professional colleagues from Pippa's various endeavors, and family members whose presence represented decades of shared history and mutual support. The diversity of the guest list reflected the rich tapestry of relationships that had shaped Pippa's journey to this moment. William's posture remained formally correct throughout the pre-ceremony period, but those who knew him well could detect the subtle signs of his genuine engagement with the proceedings. His relationship with the Middleton family had evolved from the careful politeness of early courtship to something approaching genuine familial affection. Michael Middleton's steady presence and Carol's warm efficiency had provided a model of family stability that William had come to value deeply, particularly given the complexities of his own upbringing. The presence of Prince George and Princess Charlotte as page boy and bridesmaid added a layer of spontaneous joy to the proceedings that helped to soften some of the more formal aspects of the gathering. Charlotte's careful attention to her flowers and George's serious concentration on his duties provided moments of authentic childhood behavior that reminded all the adults present of the simple pleasures that celebrations like this were meant to honor and preserve. Harry's demeanor throughout the pre-ceremony period reflected his characteristic ability to find genuine enjoyment in family gatherings, despite the underlying tensions that had become increasingly difficult to ignore in recent months. His easy interaction with other guests and his obvious pleasure in watching the children perform their ceremonial roles demonstrated the warmth and authenticity that had always been among his most appealing characteristics, even as other aspects of his life had become more complicated and challenging. The arrival of James Matthews and his wedding party created a palpable shift in energy throughout the church, as the reality of the approaching ceremony became immediate and undeniable. James's nervous excitement was evident to all present, but it was tempered by a confidence and maturity that spoke well for his readiness to take on the responsibilities and joys of marriage to someone as strong-willed and accomplished as Pippa. The relationship between James and the royal family members had developed gradually over the months leading up to the wedding, characterized by mutual respect rather than intimate friendship, but marked by genuine goodwill on both sides. James had demonstrated an understanding of the unique pressures and expectations that came with marrying into a family connected to the royal household, while also maintaining his own sense of identity and independence. As the final moments before Pippa's entrance approached, Catherine felt the familiar mix of anticipation and protective instinct that had characterized her feelings about significant moments in her sister's life since childhood. She remembered countless occasions when she had watched Pippa navigate challenges with characteristic determination and grace, from childhood disappointments to professional setbacks to the unique pressures that came with being the sister of a future queen. The sound of the bridal music beginning created an immediate hush throughout the church, as every guest turned toward the entrance to witness Pippa's arrival. The moment represented not just the beginning of the formal ceremony, but the culmination of months of careful planning and years of relationship building between Pippa and James. For the Middleton family, it marked another milestone in their remarkable journey from middle-class respectability to a position of unique prominence in British society. Pippa's entrance was everything that those who knew her best would have expected: elegant without being ostentatious, confident without being presumptuous, and radiating a joy that seemed entirely authentic and unforced. Her wedding dress struck the perfect balance between honoring tradition and expressing her personal style, while her bearing demonstrated the poise and self-assurance that had served her well throughout the unprecedented attention that had followed her since Catherine's engagement to William. Michael Middleton's pride as he escorted his daughter down the aisle was evident to every person present, but it was a pride tempered by the wisdom that came from having already navigated one daughter's transition into married life under extraordinary circumstances. His steady presence provided Pippa with exactly the kind of support she needed: unwavering, unconditional, and completely focused on her happiness rather than on the broader implications of the day. Catherine's emotional response to watching her sister approach the altar was carefully controlled, but unmistakably genuine. The tears that threatened to form reflected not just the natural sentimentality of witnessing a beloved sister's wedding, but also a deeper recognition of how far they had both traveled from their childhood days in Berkshire. The journey had brought unexpected challenges and unprecedented opportunities, but it had also strengthened rather than weakened the bond between them. The ceremony itself unfolded with a dignity and warmth that reflected the careful planning that had gone into every detail, but also the authentic emotions that motivated every participant. The traditional Anglican service provided a framework that honored centuries of custom while allowing space for personal expression and individual meaning. The choice of readings, music, and ceremonial elements reflected both Pippa and James's personal values and their respect for the institution of marriage. William's attention throughout the ceremony was divided between the formal proceedings and his awareness of the broader family dynamics playing out around him. He observed Harry's genuine engagement with the celebration, Catherine's visible emotion as she watched her sister exchange vows, and the children's mixture of careful attention to their duties and natural restlessness at the length of adult ceremonies. These observations reminded him of the complexity of family relationships and the importance of cherishing moments of genuine connection. The exchange of vows between Pippa and James carried particular weight for everyone present, as the words of commitment and promise took on added significance in the context of a family that had already experienced both the joys and challenges that marriage could bring. The sincerity of their promises to each other was evident in their voices and expressions, creating a moment of authentic emotional connection that transcended any concerns about public attention or social expectations. Harry's response to the ceremony reflected his characteristic emotional openness, as he allowed himself to be fully present for the joy and hope that the occasion represented. His own recent experiences with love and loss had given him a deeper appreciation for the courage required to make public commitments and the faith necessary to believe in the possibility of lasting happiness. The sight of Pippa and James promising to support each other through whatever challenges life might bring resonated with his own hopes and fears about the future. The moment when Pippa and James were pronounced husband and wife created a surge of joy throughout the church that was both universal and deeply personal. Catherine's smile reflected not just happiness for her sister, but also a sense of completion and satisfaction at having successfully supported Pippa through another major life transition. The applause and celebration that followed felt entirely spontaneous and authentic, despite the presence of cameras and the awareness that every moment was being documented for posterity. As the newly married couple processed back down the aisle, followed by their wedding party and immediate family, the atmosphere in the church shifted from formal ceremony to joyful celebration. The children's obvious delight at having successfully completed their duties added an element of pure happiness that helped to dispel any remaining tension or self-consciousness among the adult participants. The transition from ceremony to reception required careful coordination to manage both the practical logistics of moving a large group of people and the security considerations involved in protecting the royal family members. Yet the planning had been so thorough and discreet that the guests could focus on the emotional significance of the day rather than on the complex arrangements required to make it possible. Catherine's role during this transition period involved balancing her desire to support and celebrate with Pippa while also managing her own family's needs and maintaining appropriate protocol. The sight of George and Charlotte's excitement about the reception and their obvious enjoyment of their special roles in the day provided her with moments of pure maternal pride that helped to center her emotions and remind her of what truly mattered. The reception venue, the Middleton family home transformed for the occasion, represented everything that the family valued about hospitality and celebration. The familiar surroundings have been enhanced with professional decoration and catering, but the underlying warmth and welcome remained unchanged. For Catherine, returning to the place where she had spent so many formative years created a powerful sense of continuity and belonging that helped to ground her in the midst of all the attention and activity. The careful choreography of the reception allowed for both formal elements like speeches and toasts and informal moments of conversation and connection among guests who rarely had the opportunity to gather together. The success of this balance reflected the Middleton family's growing expertise in hosting events that honored their elevated social position while maintaining the authenticity and warmth that had always characterized their approach to entertaining. The reception at the Middleton family home unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony, where every note had been planned, yet the overall melody flowed with natural grace and spontaneity. The gardens, transformed into an elegant outdoor venue, provided the perfect backdrop for celebration while maintaining the intimate family atmosphere that Carol and Michael Middleton had worked so hard to preserve. Catherine moved through the gathering with practiced ease, her years of public appearances having taught her how to engage genuinely with guests while maintaining awareness of the broader social dynamics at play. The conversations that filled the afternoon air represented a unique cross-section of British society, from childhood friends who had known Pippa long before her sister's royal connection, to professional associates who had worked with her in various capacities, to family members whose presence represented decades of shared history and mutual support. For Catherine, these interactions provided a refreshing opportunity to engage with people who knew her as Kate First and the Duchess of Cambridge Second. William's approach to the reception demonstrated his growing comfort with events that blended personal and public elements. His conversations with other guests revealed a man who had learned to find genuine pleasure in social gatherings while never losing sight of his responsibilities and the example he needed to set. The easy way he interacted with the Middleton family's longtime friends showed how much his relationship with Catherine's family had evolved from formal courtesy to something approaching genuine affection and belonging. The presence of Prince George and Princess Charlotte continued to provide moments of pure joy that helped to lighten the atmosphere and remind everyone present that this was fundamentally a celebration of family and new beginnings. Charlotte's delight in her bridesmaid dress and her careful attention to staying clean while still enjoying the festivities demonstrated the perfect balance between royal training and childhood spontaneity. George's serious approach to his page boy duties gradually gave way to more relaxed enjoyment as the formal elements of the day concluded. Harry's engagement with the reception reflected his characteristic ability to find authentic connection with people from all walks of life. His conversations with guests ranged from serious discussions about shared interests to light-hearted banter that showcased the warmth and humor that had always been among his most appealing qualities. Yet those who knew him well could detect the underlying tension that had become his constant companion, the awareness that even in these moments of family celebration, he remained under scrutiny and subject to interpretation. The afternoon progressed with a series of traditional elements, toasts, speeches, and ceremonial moments that had been adapted to fit the unique circumstances of a wedding that involved both royal family members and a desire for intimate celebration. Michael Middleton's Father of the Bride speech struck the perfect tone, honoring his daughter's achievements and expressing his approval of her choice while acknowledging the broader family context that made this gathering possible. James Matthews's response, as the groom, demonstrated both his genuine affection for Pippa and his understanding of the unique position he was accepting as a member of a family connected to the royal household. His words reflected confidence in his relationship with Pippa while showing appropriate respect for the traditions and expectations that came with his new family connections. The sincerity of his commitment was evident to all present, helping to dispel any concerns about his readiness for the responsibilities he was accepting. The interaction between the three royal family members throughout the reception revealed the complex dynamics that had developed in their relationships over recent years. There were moments of genuine warmth and easy camaraderie, particularly when they were engaged with the children or responding to shared experiences. Yet there were also subtle signs of the distance that had grown between them, the careful politeness that had replaced the unguarded intimacy of their earlier relationships. Catherine's role as both sister of the bride and royal family member required constant navigation between different expectations and responsibilities. She needed to be present and supportive for Pippa while also maintaining appropriate protocol and managing her children's needs. The success with which she balanced these competing demands reflected her growing expertise in managing the complex requirements of her position while preserving the authentic relationships that mattered most to her. The conversations that took place throughout the reception provided insights into the various ways that the extended family had adapted to the unprecedented attention that had become part of their lives. Longtime family friends spoke with easy familiarity about the changes they had witnessed, while newer acquaintances demonstrated the mixture of curiosity and respect that characterized most people's response to close proximity to royal family members. The photography throughout the reception required careful coordination to capture the joy and spontaneity of the celebration while respecting the family's desire for privacy and the security requirements that governed any gathering involving royal family members. The professional photographers worked alongside family members taking personal photos, creating a comprehensive record of the day that would preserve both the formal milestones and the candid moments of connection and celebration. As the afternoon progressed toward evening, the energy of the gathering shifted from the structured formality of the post-ceremony period to a more relaxed celebration that allowed for deeper conversations and more spontaneous interactions. This transition provided opportunities for the kind of authentic family connection that had become increasingly rare as the various family members' public responsibilities had expanded and their lives had become more complex. The children's gradual transition from formal good behavior to more typical childhood energy provided a natural rhythm to the proceedings, as their needs for food, rest, and entertainment created natural breaks in the adult conversations and activities. Catherine's attention to their well-being, while still participating fully in the celebration, demonstrated the multitasking skills that had become essential to her daily life as both a mother and a public figure. William's interactions with various guests throughout the reception revealed his growing confidence in social situations that required him to represent both his personal relationships and his royal position. His conversations ranged from serious discussions about shared interests to light-hearted exchanges that showcased his developing comfort with the kind of public engagement that would be increasingly important as he prepared for his future role as king. The evening portion of the reception allowed for more intimate gatherings and deeper conversations among family members and close friends. These smaller groupings provided opportunities for the kind of personal connection that was often difficult to achieve in larger, more formal settings. Catherine found particular pleasure in conversations with childhood friends who could remind her of the person she had been before royal responsibilities became central to her identity. Harry's participation in these more intimate conversations revealed both his genuine affection for the Middleton family and his growing awareness of the ways that his own life path was diverging from those of his brother and sister-in-law. His easy rapport with other guests demonstrated the social skills that had always been among his greatest strengths, while his moments of introspection suggested the internal processing that had become increasingly important as he worked to define his own purpose and direction. The traditional elements of the evening reception, including music, dancing, and continued celebration, provided a framework for joy and connection that transcended any concerns about protocol or public attention. The sight of newlyweds Pippa and James moving through their reception with obvious happiness and gratitude created a center of positive energy that influenced every interaction and conversation throughout the gathering. The gradual departure of various guests as the evening progressed allowed for increasingly intimate gatherings among immediate family members and closest friends. These final hours of celebration provided opportunities for the kind of personal reflection and emotional processing that were often impossible during the more public portions of such events. Catherine's conversations during this period revealed both her satisfaction at having successfully supported her sister and her awareness of the complex emotions that significant family milestones always generated. The children's eventual transition to sleep, either at the reception venue or through careful transportation back to their regular routine, marked another shift in the evening's energy and allowed the adults to engage in conversations and activities that were more suited to their own needs and interests. This progression reflected the careful planning that had gone into ensuring that every family member could participate fully in the celebration while having their individual needs respected and accommodated. As the reception moved toward its conclusion, the sense of successful celebration was palpable among all participants. The day had achieved the delicate balance between honoring tradition and expressing personal values, between accommodating public interest and preserving family intimacy, between meeting royal protocol requirements and allowing for authentic emotional expression. The satisfaction visible on every family member's face reflected not just the joy of the specific occasion, but also the recognition that they had successfully navigated another complex milestone while strengthening rather than straining their family bonds. The final conversations of the evening often carried the weight of deeper reflection, as family members and close friends processed not just the day's events, but also the broader significance of another successful transition in a family that had experienced unprecedented changes and challenges. The mixture of celebration and contemplation that characterized these exchanges reflected the maturity and wisdom that had developed within the extended family as they had learned to balance personal happiness with public responsibility. The late evening hours of Pippa's wedding reception created an atmosphere of intimate reflection and deeper connection that had been impossible during the more formal portions of the day. As many of the extended guests had departed, the remaining group consisted primarily of immediate family members and closest friends, allowing for conversations and interactions that revealed the genuine emotions and relationships that lay beneath the public facades that had been necessary throughout the day's celebrations. Catherine found herself in a quiet corner of the garden with her mother, Carol, sharing a moment of maternal satisfaction and reflection that encompassed not just the day's success, but the broader journey their family had traveled together. The conversation touched on memories from both daughters' childhoods, the challenges and opportunities that had come with Catherine's marriage to William, and the deep sense of pride that came from watching both of their daughters navigate their adult lives with grace and authenticity despite unprecedented pressures and attention. The sight of Pippa and James moving through the remaining guests with obvious contentment and gratitude provided a centerpiece of joy that influenced every conversation and interaction during these final hours. Their happiness seemed entirely genuine and unforced, reflecting not just the pleasure of their wedding day, but also their confidence in their relationship and their readiness for the life they were building together. The easy way they interacted with family members from both sides demonstrated their success in blending their individual histories into a shared future. William's participation in these more intimate evening conversations revealed aspects of his personality and perspective that were rarely visible during his more public appearances. His discussions with Michael Middleton about everything from family traditions to current events showed a man who had learned to value the kind of straightforward, unpretentious wisdom that characterized Catherine's father. The mutual respect that had developed between them over the years provided a foundation for conversations that went far beyond mere politeness or social obligation. Harry's engagement during this portion of the evening reflected his characteristic emotional openness, but it was tempered by an awareness of the complex dynamics that had become increasingly difficult to navigate in recent months. His conversations with various family members revealed both his genuine affection for the Middleton family and his growing sense of isolation within his own family structure. The contrast between his easy rapport with the Middletons and the more careful interactions with his brother and sister-in-law had become increasingly noticeable to those who knew them all well. The children's peaceful sleep in a nearby room, carefully monitored but not intrusive to the adult celebrations, provided a sense of continuity and future hope that influenced the tone of many evening conversations. Prince George and Princess Charlotte's obvious enjoyment of their roles in the day's ceremonies and their easy interaction with their Middleton relatives had demonstrated once again the value of maintaining connections to Catherine's family background and the more normal experiences it could provide. The evening's conversations often turned to reflections on the nature of family loyalty and support, particularly in the context of the unique pressures and expectations that had become part of their daily reality. The Middleton family's success in maintaining their essential character while adapting to their changed circumstances provided a model that influenced how other family members thought about their own responses to challenge and opportunity. Catherine's role during these quieter evening hours allowed her to step back from the careful balance of responsibilities that had characterized her day and simply enjoy the pleasure of family celebration and personal reflection. Her conversations with longtime friends provided opportunities to process not just the day's events, but also the broader changes in her life and identity that continued to evolve as she grew into her royal role while maintaining her essential self. The traditional elements that marked the conclusion of the wedding reception, including the cutting of additional cake portions for guests to take home, final toasts among immediate family, and the ceremonial elements that would transition Pippa and James into their married life, provided a framework for closure while honoring the significance of the commitments that had been made and witnessed throughout the day. William's observations during these final hours encompassed both satisfaction at the day's success and awareness of the complex family dynamics that continue to require careful navigation. His conversations with Harry during this period were characterized by an attempt to bridge the growing distance between them. Though both brothers seemed aware that their diverging paths in life made such connections increasingly challenging to maintain authentically. The music and dancing that continued into the evening provided opportunities for more spontaneous expressions of joy and celebration, allowing family members to interact in ways that were less structured and more emotionally open than had been possible during the more formal portions of the day. These moments of physical celebration helped to create shared memories that would outlast any temporary tensions or complications in their various relationships. Harry's participation in the evening's festivities demonstrated his continued ability to find genuine joy in family celebrations, despite the internal struggles that had become increasingly difficult to conceal. His interactions with other guests revealed both his natural warmth and his growing awareness that his future within the royal family structure would require difficult choices about identity, purpose, and personal happiness. The conversations that took place between Catherine and Pippa during these final hours of celebration carried particular emotional weight, as they provided opportunities for the sisters to process together not just the day's significance, but also their evolving relationship as they both navigated married life under very different, but equally challenging circumstances. The mutual support and understanding that characterized these exchanges reflected the deep bond that had sustained them through all the changes and pressures of recent years. The gradual transition from celebration to conclusion required careful coordination to ensure that the day ended with the same grace and consideration that had characterized its earlier phases. The logistics of departure, security arrangements, and final family interactions needed to be managed in ways that preserved the emotional authenticity of the day while meeting the practical requirements imposed by their various positions and responsibilities. The final photographs of the evening, both professional and personal, captured moments of genuine happiness and family connection that would serve as lasting reminders of a day that had successfully balanced public expectations with private joy. The images revealed the authentic emotions that had motivated every participant, from the obvious contentment of the newlyweds to the satisfaction of parents and siblings who had supported them throughout their journey to this moment. As the evening drew toward its close, the sense of successful celebration was accompanied by a deeper awareness of the precious nature of these moments of family unity and shared purpose. The rarity of occasions when their various schedules and responsibilities allowed for such extended time together made the day's success even more meaningful and provided motivation for continued efforts to maintain and strengthen family connections despite the challenges that their public positions inevitably created. The final conversations of the evening often carried undertones of both gratitude for the day's success and awareness of the uncertainty that characterized all their futures. The changes that had already transformed their family structure and the additional changes that seemed inevitable created a context of appreciation for present moments of connection and happiness that might not be easily replicated in an increasingly complex future. The transition from celebration back to their individual daily realities would begin the following morning. But for these final hours of Pippa's wedding day, the focus remained entirely on the joy that had brought them together and the love that continued to bind them despite all the pressures and challenges that had tested their relationships over the years. The success of the day provided hope that their family bonds remained strong enough to support them through whatever additional challenges and changes lay ahead. The quiet satisfaction that characterized the end of the reception reflected not just the pleasure of a successful celebration, but also the recognition that they had once again demonstrated their ability to come together as a family when it truly mattered. The memory of this day would serve as a source of strength and inspiration during future periods of difficulty or uncertainty, providing evidence that love and mutual support could overcome even the most complex obstacles to family unity and happiness. The morning after Pippa's wedding brought with it the quiet satisfaction that follows a celebration successfully completed, but also the inevitable return to the complex realities that govern the daily lives of the royal family members. Catherine woke in her familiar surroundings at Kensington Palace, her mind immediately filling with memories from the previous day. Images of Pippa's radiant happiness, the children's careful attention to their ceremonial duties, and the precious moments of authentic family connection that had made all the careful planning and protocol worthwhile. The contrast between the intimate family celebration and the media coverage that had already begun to appear highlighted once again the challenge of maintaining authentic relationships while living under constant public scrutiny. Catherine's morning routine included a careful review of the initial press coverage, not out of vanity or concern for her own image, but from a protective instinct toward her sister and a desire to understand how the public narrative of the day was being shaped and interpreted. William's perspective on the aftermath reflected his growing understanding of how public events involving the royal family inevitably became part of a larger story about monarchy, tradition, and social change. His morning conversations with his private secretary touched on the successful management of the previous day's security and protocol requirements, but also on the broader implications of public appearances that successfully balanced royal dignity with authentic family emotion. The children's memories of their special roles in the wedding would become part of their own developing understanding of what it meant to be members of the royal family. Prince George's serious approach to his page boy duties and Princess Charlotte's delight in her bridesmaid dress had created positive associations with ceremonial responsibilities that would serve them well as their own public roles expanded in future years. Harry's processing of the previous day's events was complicated by his own internal struggles with the expectations and limitations that came with his royal position. The contrast between the easy warmth he had felt with the Middleton family and the more complicated emotions surrounding his own place within the royal structure had become increasingly difficult to ignore. The wedding had provided a temporary respite from these concerns, but their return seemed inevitable as he contemplated his future path. The Middleton family's own adjustment to the aftermath of their daughter's wedding included processing not just the emotional significance of the milestone, but also the reality of having successfully managed another major event under intense public attention. Carol and Michael's experience with Catherine's royal wedding had prepared them for many of the challenges, but each occasion brought its own unique pressures and requirements that tested their ability to maintain their essential character while adapting to extraordinary circumstances. Pippa and James's transition into married life would unfold against the backdrop of continued public interest in their relationship and future plans. Their honeymoon preparations included not just the typical excitement of newlyweds embarking on their first journey together as a married couple, but also the practical considerations required when one member of a couple had family connections that made privacy a constant challenge rather than a reasonable expectation. The broader family's reflection on the day's success encompassed appreciation for moments of genuine connection that had been possible despite the complex logistics and security requirements. The sight of multiple generations celebrating together, from elderly relatives to the youngest family members, had provided reminders of the continuity and strength that could sustain families through periods of change and challenge. Catherine's conversations with her closest advisors in the days following the wedding touched on lessons learned about balancing personal and public responsibilities during significant family events. Her growing expertise in managing these complex situations had value not just for her own peace of mind, but also as preparation for future occasions when she might need to support other family members through similar milestones and transitions. The security team's evaluation of the day's events provided insights into best practices for protecting royal family members while allowing maximum participation in private family celebrations. The successful coordination between multiple agencies and the discretion with which protection had been provided had created a model that could be adapted for future occasions requiring similar careful balance between safety and authenticity. William's reflection on his own role during the wedding revealed his continued evolution as someone who needed to represent both personal relationships and institutional responsibilities. His growing comfort with events that blended public and private elements reflected maturation that would serve him well as his own future role as monarch brought increasing expectations for leadership in both formal and informal contexts. The children's integration of their wedding experience into their developing understanding of family relationships and social responsibilities provided valuable foundation for their future roles. Their obvious enjoyment of their ceremonial duties and their easy interaction with extended family members demonstrated the success of efforts to provide them with experiences that were both educationally valuable and genuinely enjoyable. Harry's ongoing struggle with his place within the royal family structure had been temporarily eased by the previous day's focus on supporting Pippa and James, but the underlying questions about his future purpose and direction remained unresolved. The contrast between his natural ease in social situations and his growing discomfort with formal royal duties had become increasingly apparent to those who observed him closely during public appearances. The media's analysis of the wedding focused not just on the immediate events, but also on their significance within the broader context of royal family relationships and public expectations. The generally positive coverage reflected successful achievement of the careful balance between maintaining appropriate dignity and allowing authentic emotion that had characterized the entire day's proceedings. Catherine's sisterly pride in Pippa's happiness was accompanied by a deeper appreciation for the strength and resilience that had allowed both of them to navigate the unprecedented attention that had become part of their family's reality. The wedding had demonstrated once again that meaningful personal milestones could be celebrated successfully despite the complex requirements imposed by their changed circumstances. The extended family's assessment of the wedding's success included recognition of how much they had all learned about managing public attention while preserving the essential elements that made family celebrations meaningful and memorable. The expertise they had developed through experience would continue to serve them well as they face future milestones and transitions that would inevitably attract similar scrutiny and require comparable, careful planning. The professional relationships that had made the day's success possible, from security personnel to catering staff to photography teams, reflected the extensive network of skilled individuals whose discretion and competence had become essential to the royal family's ability to participate in personal celebrations while meeting their public responsibilities. The appreciation expressed for these contributions acknowledged the collaborative effort required for such complex undertakings. As the immediate aftermath of the wedding transitioned into longer-term memory and reflection, the day's significance extended beyond its immediate joy to encompass lessons about family resilience, the possibility of maintaining authentic relationships despite extraordinary circumstances, and the value of celebrating love and commitment, even when such celebrations require complex coordination and careful management of competing expectations. The wedding photographs that would be preserved as family memories captured not just the formal milestones of the ceremony and reception, but also the candid moments of connection and joy that had made the day personally meaningful for all participants. These images would serve as reminders of a time when family bonds had proven stronger than external pressures and when love and mutual support had created space for genuine celebration despite all obstacles. The legacy of Pippa's wedding within the royal family's ongoing story would be its demonstration that personal happiness and family loyalty could be successfully maintained and celebrated even within the constraints of public life and institutional responsibility. The day had provided evidence that authentic emotion and genuine relationships could coexist with formal protocol and public expectations, offering hope for future occasions when similar balance would be required. The quiet satisfaction that settled over all participants in the days following the celebration reflected not just pleasure in Pippa and James's obvious happiness, but also pride in having successfully navigated another complex challenge while strengthening rather than straining the family relationships that provided foundation and meaning for all their individual journeys through public life and private fulfillment.